Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the PowerTalk Show powered by Business Talks Weekly. Our guest today started his entrepreneurial journey when he was 18 years old. Our guest is Matthew Peck. Matthew, welcome to the PowerTalk Show.
Thanks for having me here. It's great to be here.
Wonderful, Matthew. Thank you so much. I would like to start the conversation by understanding your professional journey and what are you currently working on?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a little bit of a different story because straight out of high school, I actually started my first company when I was 18. It was actually a martial arts school. All I knew how to do is to punch and kick on people. And so I decided that, martial arts studio owner would be a lot of fun. And it was great. Ran it for about 10 years before selling the company and then pursuing some other interests along the way. And then prior to the company I'm building now, I actually built out a marketing agency. We grew the agency and actually became the first franchise owner of another company called Monster Media that's based out of Australia. We became the first one in the United States. And then over the last 5 years, I've had very much a passion for things such as day trading and algorithms and building out actual programs. And so I just recently launched a new company called Boardroom Capital. And Boardroom Capital is actually a SaaS program. It's a software in which we connect accredited investors along with automated trading scripts for Forex commodities and crypto. So it's been a lot of fun building out. I've never built out a dev project like this before. So there's a lot of learning curve. Even having built other companies, it's a completely different industry that we had to go through a lot of regulations and a lot of just different build outs that I didn't know a lot about in the beginning of. So it's taken 5 years to kind of get to the point where we can actually launch the company, but we just launched in July of this year.
That's wonderful. Congratulations, Matthew, on that. So, with Boardroom Capital, what kind of challenges are you looking forward to solve for your users?
Yeah. So what we actually saw for a lot of business owners, our actual target audience is entrepreneurs, high-end executives, or high-income earners, such as sales rep, commission folks, and stuff like that. What we do is Boardroom Capital, you open an account, you put money into the account, and you actually get to choose between different algorithms that are automatically trading. So you can choose between this algorithm or this algorithm. You can diversify your own portfolio, if you will. We don't custody any funds. So it's a straight pass through into the broker account that automatically goes into the trading algorithms. And the goal for it is because we don't have lockups and we don't have high fees, the goal was to find entrepreneurs and people who have excess money, but aren't sure what to do with that point in time, to give them a way that they can create additional revenue from that capital without getting locked up in a 5-10 year bond and yields and stuff like that, or some type of IRA that they can't touch or without facing high penalties. So we really connected accredited investors and people who have additional revenue and capital to trading scripts. And the biggest part about these trading scripts to understand is that everything that we have has a track record on live accounts. We're not doing back testing. These aren't theories. Everything is third-party verified and tested, or third-party verified. And that makes a big difference because it's not risky where someone says, we've tested this over the last 20 years. And as someone who trades, back tests are almost always perfect. Like you can make them work that way. Everything here has been done on live accounts. Everything here has been verified by a third party. But the goal was, once again, to connect entrepreneurs and people who have additional capital in a way that they could generate additional revenue from trading and not actually have to do the trade themselves. And as someone who is a trader for 5 years, sitting in front of charts is not what I wanted to do. I wanted something that could take my capital and work for me, which is what we developed at the end of the day.
How does AI and LLM insights actually help build a platform like that? If somebody is trading, how does it helps them get that insights?
It's a great thing because we actually do utilize AI in some of our strategies. And I think the important thing to understand is that even with AI, there's still different things that a person has to be able to see because there's a certain level of understanding that goes into it. But what AI really does for us is it helps capital allocation. So as we have, for instance, we have one of our strategies that has 30 different subsets of strategies underneath it. So depending on how the strategy is performing, AI automatically allocates capital to the strategies that are performing best and takes away from strategies that aren't performing as well. And that's one of the ways we've been able to do very well in the markets, is because AI is actually determining which strategies are performing best, not based off feelings, but based off data. And that's really the key point inside of what we do. So starting my first company at 18 was very much a higher risk thing, right? I knew how to do karate. I knew how to teach people karate. I did it for years at another karate school. In teaching martial arts, running a business is not the same, clearly. And I didn't have a business background. I started right out of high school. So it was the school of hard knocks. It was a lot of failing in the process. I didn't go to college. I mean, I clearly went from one thing right into entrepreneurship, and I don't regret it because it's been a lot of fun. But it was very different because at 18, the only person I had to worry about was myself. Now that I'm 40, I've got a family, I've got a wife, I've got kids. And so my level of risk has changed because it's not just me anymore. I've got a family to provide for. So I can't take the same inherent risk I did when I was 18 the first time versus what I would do now because it's not just about me. It doesn't mean there's not risky plays and stuff like that. Building a business, because if you start a business at all, it's a risk. But it's been very much a different level of communication and learning. And also, probably the biggest thing about it is being a dad. Because before I had kids, it didn't really matter what I did. I could be out at all hours of the night, doing business meetings, talking on the phone. It didn't matter, right? But, I really want to be present for my kids. And the whole reason for building the company and the type of trading platform that we have is that we wanted to create something that people didn't have to monitor in order to create revenue. And so for me, that was a big deal. But I still wanted to be there for, my daughter's gymnastics team or for my daughter's softball team, get ready to put my son in karate. Go figure that was going to happen, right? He was going to take karate. But, I wanted to be present for those things without having to worry about specific things. So one of the biggest key factors for me in this new company is understanding how to delegate and ask for help and have other people involved with me who have different skill sets that I do. I can very much call and have someone else take something I have trust now in what they're doing. Building this company has been a little bit different. It's been, I don't want to say less stressful. It's been easier because I'm older and understand more about how business operates and what that I don't have to control everything. I can very much delegate things to other people. And that's been a big saving grace in starting this company.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, family is your actual wealth when it comes to your personal life. Matthew, when you started with Boardroom Capital, what kind of insights, what kind of lessons that you bought in from your previous companies that you will not do it in Boardroom Capital?
Some of the things that I've learned from starting this company that weren't the same, and one of the biggest things about Boardroom Capital is because we're a Reg D 506C, is that there's a lot of regulation that goes inside of it. So things I didn't know about beforehand that we had to really overcome with attorneys and understand what we can and can't do, what we can and can't say. And that's been one of the biggest things. The other companies didn't have the same regulations because, it was a karate school. Your regulations make sure you have insurance. Marketing agency was very much the same thing. We're helping business owners attract leads and market to people and so forth like that. This is a different side of it. But what's cool is the marketing side really played into this because I understood how to market the company. I understood how to do the sales process because it's what I've been doing for years. So it's been a bit different along those lines. But there's a lot of trip ups inside this that you don't see and understand. One, it is very competitive. We have institutional grade strategies that work with hedge funds and large amounts of capital. And so it's very much, it's good, but it's also kind of niche at the same time. Like we can help a lot of people out, but we can also help certain people out. That's why we target our work with accredited investors primarily. And that's just based here in the US and some of the rules that we have to abide by. But it was definitely a learning curve because I believed I was really good at marketing and helping other people succeed. But even in this company, I had to change the way that I thought because it's my company I'm marketing for. So I have a little bit more of a bias towards it, but I had to make sure that I was looking at it from outside in and not being emotional about what it was and what I thought was right. I really had to look at the data. So even doing marketing, I still had to really dive in deeper to what I was doing and how to solve those problems.
Absolutely. And you spoke about marketing and lead generation. What is your current customer acquisition method? Because, when it comes to finance and trading, you have to build a sort of a trust to acquire that client, right? How are you trying to build that?
So it's actually kind of cool because we're taking real marketing techniques that I use at the agency. We have funnels that are built, we have webinars, we do video marketing, we have social media, we have all the traditional aspects of it. But really what it comes down to is these conversations like we're even having now. But once I'm able to talk to someone, explain it and explain the process, it's like any other sales process where we're really building trust along the way. And that's actually when I started doing these podcasts is because for me, it's a way to help put myself out there, which is still new for me. And by the way, being on a podcast is scary to me. I have never once thought I'd be someone who's on a podcast. And that's different. It's outside my comfort zone, but I do believe it's important because it plays a big benefit in building trust along the lines of it. So it's very much a full stack marketing plan. From funnels, digital, we have print ads, we have e-blasts, we have newsletters that we do. We didn't take anything off the table. We figured that if we could do it all, we'd find out what works in the data when it comes back to us along those lines of it.
But when it comes to security and regulations, what kind of regulations and security have you put into place that your end users and your customers can have a trust and go with your platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a couple partners that we work with because the one thing about Boardroom Capital is since we're a SaaS product and we're a software, we don't custody any funds. That's probably the biggest thing to understand that we do is that you're not sending me a check. You're opening an account, the money goes directly into your brokerage account, and that's where it stays. We don't have access to it at all. We're simply the tech provider along those lines of it. But we still have regulations that we have to abide by simply because it's finance, it's trading, it's forex, it's commodities and so forth like that. And that's why it's a Reg D 56C because that's what we're required to do. But we have registered CTAs that we work with that actually handle the actual custody of funds and so forth like that. So that's always one of the big things about it is, regulations are big clearly in this field, and it's been a very interesting learning curve because I will say as much about regulation inside the states it's not always very clear. Sometimes it's like, hey, we need you to have this first before we do this. And then this person says, well, actually, you need that before we can do this. And so it's almost like the chicken before the egg. Which one are you supposed to do first, to be honest? Solid question. So I'm not an investment advisor, so I wouldn't be the right person to answer those questions. I mean, clearly I have opinions of what they are, but
Yes.
I would be ill advised to answer those questions as far as because they're strictly my opinions for what they are. I will say if anyone has any questions or want my thoughts of it, you can connect with me on Instagram or other platforms, and we can have just a one-on-one conversation with it. But I think it's been interesting. Let's put it that it's been a roller coaster no one really saw coming. Let's be honest. I mean, the government opened up back up this morning, and the markets have been interesting so far, especially for the fact that CPI was supposed to really say, and we got no data. So the markets have no idea what's going on. The Fed interest rate cuts, it's a coin toss. But then again, I'm not an investment advisor, and there's people out here who are far smarter than I am as far as making this economic macro suggestions. But I'm always happy to have that conversation outside of a place where we can sit down, maybe a cup of coffee, and we just shoot the bull and see what happens with it.
That's wonderful. So let me ask you a different question, Matthew. What's your vision for the next 5 years with Boardroom Capital?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And we've actually done a lot of mind mapping when it comes to that because whereas Boardroom Capital is set up as a 506C and we work with accredited investors, my business partner has a hedge fund that he actually runs that are for what we call QEPs. So they have a much higher minimum to get inside of, and you have to make far more money than an accredited investor does to be qualified for that. Anyone who happens to be interested in that, I'm happy to connect them with that because that is his doing. One of the cool things that we're working on is something for what we call retail clients or people who are non-accredited. It's a very different realm, but as someone who has someone who is a actual CTA and has the license and regulations for that, we are working on products to help them along the lines. Because there's a lot of people out here who do what we call robo advisors. So they sell you an algorithm that they put on your account. They sell it to you for $10,000 and $20,000 for access to, and then you open up with an account. It takes you, and honestly, and I'm not a fan of. It's an opinion. I'm not a fan of those simply because you pay for such a big license that you have to really put capital into it to get that money back at a decent time. But you're still going to let it trade for a year before you ever make your money back. So we want to create something that is really definitely made for the everyday type of person. Because, and this is once again my story. I started trading 5 years ago or almost 6 years ago during COVID. My business was slower, and I had a friend who was trading. He's like, you should check it out. So I learned a lot, and it was a big learning curve. I've had some really bad days, but that's part of the learning aspect of it. He taught me how to be disciplined, and I moved that over into trading. To be honest with you, trading has been amazing. Learning a skill set that I can use from my phone or from my computer and trade the markets. I mean, if I'm sitting down watching Netflix, I can equally open up my laptop and look for a trade in the market. And now I'm watching Netflix isn't so bad because hopefully I've made some money in that process. But my goal is to help other people in that aspects of it because the markets are open for everyone. It's not just for certain people anymore. And so my goal is to have a retail product that is designed and specifically for the non-accredited people who are looking to get into the trading world, but don't necessarily have the time to do it. I mean, if you think about people who may be working a different job where they're working 10 and 12-hour shifts, they don't have time to sit down and do that. So we want to be able to help. The goal ultimately is to help everyone get into this space to at least generate a little bit of extra income from nothing that they're doing. So, the future plans is we do want a retail side that is for everyone who's not accredited. And we're working through that process now. But again, it's a lot of regulation and a lot of red tape.
Wonderful, and good luck with that, Matthew. One final question to you, Matthew, as you are currently working towards financial and investment advice. What one piece of financial advice that you got that changed your perspective?
So my wife and I have different perspectives on this. My wife, and this is why we're good at what we do as a team, she'll save every penny we get. And I'm like, well, we could probably make some money if we did this instead. Part of me is you have to be financially responsible, not to, put money into something that is, it's okay to be high risk, but I do believe that you have to be willing to take a risk to really achieve those dreams. No one's ever got wealthy off saving money. It's just not happened. If you're an entrepreneur, you put risk on yourself by opening a business in general, which is why we work with business owners, because if they have capital, we can help them make money from it while it's just sitting there. But at the end of the day, I think my only advice, and I put that in quotations because I'm not really much of an advice giver, is it's okay to take risks, but it's also okay to fail. I think a lot of times we as individuals see a lot of people who are successful, but we never saw the struggles they had in the beginning of it. I can talk about having started companies, but there were days where I had to figure out if I was going to pay the light bill or the water bill because I couldn't pay them both. So it's very much an educational thing that you learn to work through. But I've always learned that even if you fail, you can start again, and not to let my business be tied to who I am personally. I'm Matthew, the husband, the father, the individual. I'm not Matthew, the finance guy, if that makes sense. I no longer tie my identity to my profession. I tie to who I'm as a person. And that's been a big difference, because even if my business fails, it doesn't mean I failed. I mean, I'm still a father. I'm still a husband. As long as I'm doing those jobs correctly and doing to the best of my ability, I'm perfectly happy with whatever happens in business.
That's a wonderful way to look at things, Matthew. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining our podcast today. It was a wonderful conversation.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. If you guys ever need anything, please let me know. But thank you again for having me.